Hey guys, welcome back to Token Tech, and as you can tell by the title of this video, yes, I did sell my Vega 64. Now I know a lot of you new subscribers to my channel have only come here because of the content I made on the Vega graphics card. So you might think it's a little crazy that I got rid of it, or maybe you're a little upset that, hey, I just subscribed to this guy for Vega and he got rid of his card. Well, in this video I'm going to be explaining to you guys basically my background with Vega and why I sold it and where I'm going with it now. As you know, it's been a couple weeks since I've been able to upload a video, and that's because my computer has been going through quite a few changes. But let's start at the beginning. Alright, so back when I first built my computer years ago, I started with a Vega, sorry, not a Vega, I started with an RX Radeon RX, what was it, 480, a 480 blower style card. I got it on sale. It was a pretty good deal, and I used that card for over a year. It was awesome. I loved it, and I had a Ryzen 7 1700 as the CPU. I used that for recording and live streaming using OBS X264, I believe, and doing that all on YouTube. We had a separate channel, a gaming channel, which we used to live stream and produce videos for, and it was a lot of fun, but we don't really do that too much anymore. Time to time, but it's not consistent. At some point, I thought that card had died, but it actually didn't. It was working just fine. It was just something else that went wrong, which I'm not going to get into, and I went out and I bought an RX 580, which was also a very good card and a pretty good overclocker, which I do have some benchmark results, which I'll be putting up in another video that's coming later, sometime soon. But I used that card for a while, and then eventually both of them in Crossfire because, well, you can Crossfire a 480 and a 580 in case you didn't know. Now that was pretty fun, and I did that for a while, but for obvious reasons, I went back to just using one card. Basically, Crossfire doesn't work in most games, so it didn't really make sense to have both cards in there. And then, just a couple months ago, I got the Vega 64 back in September period, and got it on a pretty good deal. It was the Nitro Plus version from Sapphire, and that card ran like a dream. But something I noticed within the first couple weeks of having the card was that it was drastically overkill for what I needed it for. Now, I always wanted one. I thought they were very interesting cards. I think that they were cards that were underappreciated and under-reviewed, and so I always wanted to get my hands on one just to see what it was like. And to be honest, I had a great time with it. The card overperformed. It did really well in benchmarks. It was fun to tinker with, to mess with, to overclock. You know, it's a little tricky to get through. That's why I made that video before I sold the card. And it performed well in every single game that I typically play. But those games aren't hard to run for most graphics cards, and so it was definitely overkill. I started noticing it when I was doing all of these benchmarks. I noticed that in a lot of these games, the performance was overkill. Overclocking didn't really do that much for me, and the games that I play, I did not need a Vega 64. For instance, when I was running Dark Souls 3, it was barely even hitting the graphics card, and a lot of the games that I run aren't much more difficult than that game is to run. So it was definitely overkill, definitely too much for my usage, and so it didn't make sense for me to hold on to it. Now, some of you might be thinking, well, why didn't you just hold on to it? You'll grow into it, right? Eventually you'll upgrade your monitor so you have a higher than 1080p 144 hertz monitor, and that could be very true, but that could have taken quite a few years because I'm very happy with 1080p 144 hertz. Maybe the games would get tougher, and that's definitely true. Maybe I'll go to a multi-monitor, that's definitely true too. But I didn't really want to wait, right? I felt like by that point in time, I could buy something that was even better than Vega 64. So I wanted to get rid of it. Also, I wanted to have some cash flow, right? Something that I could get rid of it and then have money to go and do something else, right? So I sold all three. My 480, my 580, and my Vega 64. Now I took that money and I basically went to try something new with my computer in total. This is why it's been taking so long for me to get it back up and running and get some videos out to you guys. Well, as many of you are, I am too a computer enthusiast. I love PCs, I love PC building, I love tinkering with them, I love troubleshooting them, I love doing it both hardware and software wise. I'm currently going to school for a degree in computer science, and I love just messing and learning about tech in general. Well, there's only so much reading and YouTube before you want to get your hands on the material. So something I always wanted to try was water cooling. And I was looking around what is an inexpensive way to get into custom liquid cooling, and that was in the form of EK's A240G. Water block, CPU block, tubing, fittings, reservoir, radiator, pump, all in one kit that was about $240. Now with shipping and tax it was like $270, but still that's very cheap considering all the parts you get. I saw a lot of YouTubers review it back in the day, and again this is an area that I think should have gotten more coverage and more complete coverage. Now why do I say that? Because I personally didn't know until after the fact that there is actually a version of that kit for AMD graphics cards. However, it's only for Vega 56 and Vega 64. Now, for a lot of you out there who have reference design Vega 56s and Vega 64s, that might be a way for you to get into liquid cooling, liquid cool that bad boy, and overclock it to the max. Even download the liquid cooled BIOS and really push it and see how far you can get it. That seems to be like something that could be really cool and really fun. But for me, I had a Nitro Plus, which doesn't use the reference design, so I could not go that route with what I had. So I decided to do something a little different, at least for me, and buy an Nvidia graphics card, since I've never actually owned an Nvidia graphics card. I've never overclocked one, I never tinkered with one, and so that was something I really wanted to get my hands on. You know, again, there's only so much credibility you can have by reading and watching videos that other people have made, and you know, sometimes you just want to get your hands on the hardware yourself. So what I did was I went on eBay, I looked around, I found one that was relatively cheap. I think it was $230 with tax and shipping. Everything together was $230, and it came and it was in really good condition. Now, that was actually the second one that I purchased, because the first one I purchased was dead on arrival. More about that in another video where I talk about my eBay experiences, but for now, I have a 1070 and I have it liquid cooled with a full coverage block. Another reason why I went with the 240G and not the AMD version is because this block will also work on the 1080, the 1070 Ti, as well as the 1080 Ti, which I'm hoping in the near future, let's say a year or so from now, that will be on used for a lot cheaper than it is right now. Right now you can get those used for around $500 to $600. That's too expensive in my opinion. And I'm hoping in about a year you can get them for maybe closer to $300 used, if not cheaper, depending on what comes out since then. And perhaps I'll get one of those and just slap this water block on it and have a liquid cooled 1080 Ti. Again, just speculating for the future, but I wanted to get my hands in water cooling as well as using Nvidia graphics cards, right? So I really wanted to grow my own personal experience, because again, I've never used an Nvidia graphics card before. I didn't want to buy one new because they're too expensive, so I went and got one used on the secondary market. Now, looking towards the future, I will have videos on overclocking the 1070, on benchmarking it, on in-game performance. I also want to make videos about my eBay experience, videos of new hardware versus used hardware, because this is my first time buying a used graphics card. Like I said, I have performance numbers for the 580, which I'll be putting up in another video, and I also have this idea that's been going through my head of how to accurately maybe look at these benchmark charts that all of these tech tubers use, and maybe people aren't looking at them in the right way. Anyways, that's an idea that should be developing and coming out a little later this month. But anyways, that's what has been going on with me, with my system, my hardware changes, what I've sold, what I've bought, and why. Tell me what you think in the comment section down below, and yeah, we'll keep this going. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys in the next one. See ya.